Everybody in the main cast right now is of age, so round of applause for anime characters that are finally. It's such a rare one nowadays. We don't usually get that. So having an entire cast like that feels like a little bit of a shocker, but we made it, and that's a pretty cool thing. So I'm very, very excited. Doesn't really do anything, I guess, narratively, but we continue pushing forward, and I'm excited, I guess, to see what else they kind of get themselves into. If we're going to develop out a arc, if we are going to just simple one-offs as we've kind of been doing the past few. Whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be wonderful, so I'm excited. If you like it all, like and subscribe to me, on to me. Feel free to run for the discussion. Leave any comments with this episode or series. This is a Toho show. This will be blocked at some point because Toho does not like me. Check the link in the description or in the comments if you would still like to watch the reaction after they end up blocking it and I have to cut it out at some point. Let's get going though with episode 13. Well, this episode is more of like a slower one. It's filled with a lot of different like little and short moments that just are very, I don't know, they hit very very well, and they're very cool things just to kind of see all become one at the end of the day, and just things that I think are just really enjoyable to see progress throughout the story and see characters think certain ways or do certain things or just different actions that they take, right? Things that like as I'm watching it, it's like, oh, I kind of wish like somebody would do this, or it just adds to the characters and their own character in a way, which I think is really, really unique and fun, rather than keeping them still or just having them like say certain things in certain moments, actually doing like physical actions throughout the episode, I think is really cool. And I'll point some of them out as I go through the episode itself, but I thought that those moments were unique. Specifically, we get through this episode with the idea of following Sign and him joining our group, our attempts constantly through FRIEREN and the others within the group to get him to join us here. She ends up kind of seeing a lot of parallels, I guess, to herself at the end of the day. The way that she viewed things, the way that he viewed kind of time, the way that he viewed like staying behind because that's what somebody else in a way has told them to do, right? It's similar to her master telling her, stay back and like kind of lay low while you figure out how to kind of suppress yourself and do this over time. And she constantly has just been working on that over time. So when this party ended up coming in trying to recruit her at the end of the day, she was like, well, there's no point for me to do it. I'm still working on this thing. I have all the time in the world still to do this, even though she had no intention to really go out of her way and really change her ways at the end of the day. She sees a lot of similarities when it comes to Sign telling himself, that this time has passed and oh, I'm only waiting for this and Buddy will return at some point, even though he knows he's not going to, and he knows that even if he sets out on this journey, he probably won't end up finding it, but just sitting around and waiting and letting time pass and understanding that, if he declines them here, the opportunity will still present itself probably with them or somebody else later at some other point, and it's okay that he missed those chances, but constantly reflecting and thinking back maybe 10 or so years before and being like, fuck, I really missed this opportunity, or did I miss out on that? How would my life have changed? What would be so different about it if I ended up taking this chance instead? Is a real thing that a lot of people will typically end up going through, reflecting back and viewing the things and the decisions and actions and stuff that you've chosen throughout your life. Did I make the right decision? Did I make the wrong decision or the right decision in passing up on this opportunity? How would things have changed? Who would I have met that would have made these things change? Would things would have been better or worse had I not met this or done this or whatever the action ends up being? And him kind of living his entirety of his life, it seems like, within having those thoughts and those feelings, and feeling like unsure, uncertainty, but trying to convince and tell himself that at the end of the day, the thing that he is doing right here and right now is the correct path and the thing that he should be doing, even if deep down he probably doesn't end up believing that, foregoing all of his dreams and hopes over all these years and even present to this day for what he actually wants to do to tell himself that these things are okay. It's really sad too to see like the situation with the brother, such a simple misunderstanding and belief within Sign over all these years of him kind of understanding what it is or the reasons why his brother has chosen the things that he has, the reasons why he wouldn't go to the capital and become a priest there, the reasons why he stayed behind, stating that his brother not wanting to leave him behind and take away his home from him is such a big reason why he's like forced to kind of stay here and live in this moment, because then he feels he's kind of going against, I guess, what his brother really wanted, which was to kind of have them be together, but also be together within this town. And then we end up ruining that if we end up leaving. So he kind of is also getting that into his own head. It's kind of reinforcing the idea that the decision that he made to not go along was the proper one. I don't know actually the timeline there, if he was asked to go with his friend and he set out on his journey prior to him figuring this information out, or if he found this out and then he ended up using that as valid reason for him to stay behind. Regardless, it works in either way. You know, if he stayed behind because he figured out that this is what his brother wanted and he didn't want to end up leaving, it would make sense, you know, and he's trying to convince himself and tell himself of that. But also, if he was asked and then he ended up deciding not to go, he could be using the reason of what his brother ended up saying here as ways of reinforcement that it is okay and he is doing the correct thing, or he did the correct thing by not actually wanting to go, because it might have caused issues or been difficult for his brother how he ended up leaving. So using that as a way also to constantly throughout all these years, this misunderstanding of what his true intentions or feelings really were, while his brother truly did want him to go out at the end of the day, and more so was just content with him being in the position and the place that he is and didn't want to upend him and like make him leave from his life that he basically has at this point in this place, and not force him to go out and travel on this adventure and go elsewhere to somewhere else when that's not really the place that he wants to go and the people or person and stuff that he wants to be with along this journey that he would end up going on, which I think is it's quite sad, because it is something that happens often within just media and in life, you know, where you kind of view or think that certain people feel or will feel certain ways if you end up doing things, whether it's because you might have overheard or heard them say something specifically, or you just have this preconceived thought of how somebody else actually views things and feels, and then you end up taking a course of action that kind of goes along or does the thing that you think is the correct decision based on what somebody else wants, but not necessarily what it is that you want, and then kind of causes you to miss opportunities or miss out on things that maybe you truly wanted over all these years, which is awfully sad, I would say, when realistically the best thing is here that the brother only wanted him to leave, right? He wanted him to go out and adventure and actually live his life and follow his dreams and do all these things that he can, while the other one had the complete opposite thought of what the other person ended up wanting in the relationship, which kind of is unfortunate, which is why we end up seeing that emotional moment when he ends up slapping him and start yelling at him, because of course that's kind of necessary for him to really get that point across. And then I'm assuming at that point ended up having them talk to each other and actually have a full out conversation about what it is that each of them want, which ultimately leads us to having Sign end up joining the group, which I really like, and I'm happy for. He seems really cool from what we've seen so far, and I'm excited to see kind of a little bit more of him. I'm not, I guess, as sold. Like, I liked Stark a lot when we were initially introduced to him. Like, something about him I actually enjoyed a lot, but right off the bat here with Sign, I don't love him. So I'm excited to see a bit more that we kind of learn and get to introduce him a little bit more, because people can always grow and stuff. So how his dynamic and stuff that he works with in the group is going to end up taking over, because he didn't introduce anything to the dynamic of the group that I feel wasn't necessarily there. He's more of like this bigger brother figure in a way that he can be towards Stark, but his relation and the way that he kind of acts towards like Fern is very similar in a way to how kind of Stark seems to be. So it doesn't do too much like to really change that. And FRIEREN just kind of sees herself within him, like, or certain things about him, so that they have that sort of connection and relation. But that doesn't also do too much for me personally to see. So I'm just interested to see, I guess, the dynamic and the way that he's really going to bring things to life a little bit, because she also, like, to me gives off the vibe of like she's like looking after them in a way, right? Where he seems to be like a full put together grown man in this situation. So I don't get that, like, where she's gonna like kind of train them and be proud of them and like things along the way, in the same way that I kind of like the dynamic that we already had established and formed. So it's just going to be interesting, I guess, to see how the way that we kind of introduce him or make him fit within this group and the dynamic of everybody else. Now, what I led with was the idea that we have a lot of little small moments and just things that happen throughout the episode that I really love, which we end up seeing here at the beginning, where he's kind of just talking about not wanting to adventure, and then right after the OP ends up happening, we end up see her just sit here and look at him and be like, what is it that you're trying to tell me this for? Which is the first thing that kind of came in my mind when they ended up saying it. So I think it's like a little dialogue thing that fits so well. And then we also have a tiny little moment again where he's just stuck and he's sinking here, which is hilarious. And then her just kind of being so unsure of how she wants to handle this because she doesn't want to pull him out and get all dirty. is fucking hilarious. I love as well. And we end up saving him here. Stark gets bitten and poisoned because of course he fucking did. I also love Eisen's reaction here when they show him getting poisoned here, or hit by the arrows that are probably like laced with poison in some sort of way, and just not having an effect or care at all in the world, which I think is great. I also love being able to see them fly here. I feel like we never really get to see that besides like when they're actually like doing something like offensively within their magic. So I like this a lot. And then we start meeting our priests who aren't really great at what they do, but they kind of are at the same time. The priests within this world are kind of messed up. You know, dude's been recognized and awarded for how great he actually is, but he's not capable, as capable, I guess, as the others. At least like with his magic and everything, I'd assume, and his healing that he ends up having. We end up figuring out that that was actually his brother, and then he saves us because he's a fucking genius. Because FRIEREN just forms squads of people who are actually geniuses with their craft, which I really, really love. The brother being concerned because his life is boring, of course. I also love Fern always like eating in these moments. I don't know why. The little like that adds to her that I like. And then we figure out that Sign is a big gambler. He's very corrupt, right? He's a gambler. He is drinking. He is smoking. He is doing just whatever, right? Which is the opposite of what you would view somebody as pure as a priest would probably end up being in that situation. I love this too, of just FRIEREN sleeping. And not wanting to get up while Fern's trying to go out and save Stark, and then they end up getting all their shit stolen because the village chief is just all too good. This is where we really start seeing some similarities in a way between the two, or FRIEREN at least starts seeing them here. I love the coat that Fern's wearing being able to be put on Stark here, which I really love, in the way that she just kind of like stands over him, like she just wants to make sure that he's okay, but she is like disappointed and concerned at the same time. And then also her taking on the authority and going in and trying to get his clothing and everything back, which is great. Fern being angry here and talking about how that she doesn't like gambling, and she doesn't like all those things, and those are absolutely the lowest. But then when it comes to somebody like Hyder, she was like, oh, he was great though. You know, nobody can be a great example of what a priest should really be like her, and so oblivious to the way that he actually was, or the way that everybody else actually viewed him, probably just because he changed so much over time. From when she ended up meeting him, right? And he was no longer the same way with his drinking and all that other stuff. But then also the false things and they saying about the way that it's like the best medicine and everything. It's so sad to see her just get completely tricked her entire life like this. We montage a lot through it, everybody just kind of trying to recruit him over and over, and it's unfortunate because it's not working out too well. And then this is like the key moment here. We end up coming to the idea that on top of all the things that we already know he likes older women. So of course the only logical thing for FRIEREN to take here is to make her alpha approach here, right? And go on the attack in this moment and be able to try and seduce him in some sort of way, or I get him on our side, because of course it's going to be able to work. And of course she pulls out the best move possible, right? I love this, how he's just like, dude, what the actual fuck? It has zero effect on him, but everybody else it does. And then her just kind of questioning as she like lost her touch at the end of the day, right? When sitting here and him all being completely fucking destroyed by it too. It's such a funny moment. It's so stupid, but it's so great. Conversation comes a little bit more where we talk about the thing that happened with Hyder and going to the capital and everything, and then that's when the brother snaps and a bunch of the stuff that we ended up talking about a little bit before, ultimately being able to get Buddy to join us at the end of the day, and now he is a part of our group, which I really, really like. I just like the idea of having like a full group of 4 as opposed to the 3 that we've always been missing, and now we end up adding somebody like a priest to us, so we have almost all the same things that she had in her original group, minus Himmel, because realistically you probably can't replace the type of person that Himmel actually is at the end of the day, in his leadership and everything that came along with it. But we have 2 mages now, so I guess that's the trade-off that we get. So it is pretty cool. I also like how he's like also taking note to the remarks and everything that Fern kind of has, and the energy that she gives off, and Stark's like, oh, you're just new to this, buddy, you'll get used to it. Which is cool. A slow one, but one that gives you plenty of time to understand and actually see the viewpoints and the thoughts and feelings that might be going down within the character of Sign in this moment, and how, I guess, just how he ends up feeling over all these years, and in his thought process, you know, get into his head a little bit going forward, and being able to understand him as a person, or how somebody like FRIEREN and everything's able to pick up on the way that he actually is, or the things that he is thinking and how he's feeling as a person, which I think is pretty cool, and it does a pretty decent job at being able to do that. I'm very excited now. I think is a perfect opportunity to actually go on like big adventure if we really want, like actually start like an arc now that we have absolutely everybody together, and I think that would actually make plenty of sense if they chose to direct us in that sort of way, but at the same time they don't necessarily have to. Now I pose a question too. We are 13 episodes in to a 28 episode series. Do we switch up OP and ED soon? Because now that everybody's established, do we do 1 through 13 as thing and then 14 through 28 is something else? I don't know. I am curious if that's the plan that ultimately will happen. Like if we get a different OP and ED or something along those lines, just to kind of incorporate everything and what it is to kind of come forward. I'd be wondering and interested in. Not that that has any, I guess, impact on the story or anything itself, but I am just curious. It's gonna be all for me though. If you like it all, like and subscribe. Do not to be feel free to stick around for discussion. Leave in the comments about this specific series. I will be back for episode 14 next week. You guys have a good one. Peace.